welcome to Torch Hours. Time has really seemed to get away from me this winter and spring, and we're almost into summer. I'm really trying to get on top of my videos, but I have been active, I have been hiking, and I've been doing some other things. I finished one of the socks that I started, who knows how long ago now. So we'll see how the next one turns out. What else have I been up to? Well, I have another art show coming up on June 13th. This is a group show at Worth Gallery called Random Acts. So if you're in the area, the show's running at least 1 week, possibly 2 weeks. Would love to see you at the opening reception on the evening of the 13th. Otherwise, stop by anytime the gallery is open and talk to Adrian, the owner. He is fantastic and a fantastic artist himself. Hello, Magic. Okay. Come here. Come on. Okay. Sweetie, there we go. There's Magic. Say hello. Other things that I've been up to. I have finished the Sydenham section, and I finished the last few kilometers of the Dufferin section, so I will be sending in for those badges shortly. I have completed about 85 kilometers of the Sydenham section, which leaves me with just a little less than 100. And that's my target for the Bruce Trail for 2024. Other things I'm hoping to do outdoorsy wise or hiking wise is some Algonquin hikes. Killarney is booked for the fall, and I will be heading out west. So that's a lot of hiking adventures right there. And I'm just gonna rub this cat while I talk to you. I have started my sailing lesson. That's been pretty exciting. I would use the words thrilling and terrifying, to be honest. It occurred to me that I am learning on a Great Lake. The first night we were out on the water, we had gusts and it was pretty windy. We almost turtled, which is flipping the boat over, but we didn't. Another boat did turtle twice, actually. If it was warmer out, I'd care a little less, but I don't want to turtle in a Great Lake in May, and now June, it's still a little cold. I've probably caught you up enough on what has been happening in the background, and we can get on with the West Coast Trail, day 6. This was from Camper Bay to Thrasher Cove. What's a map video without Magic starring in it? We started here at Camper Bay, and that is just after kilometer 62, or around kilometer 62. And we made our way not to this beach access, but to beach access B. I've taken both, but one thing I will mention here is at the top of beach access A is a beautiful big opening where a lot of campers will stop and have a snack and socialize. At least that's how it was when I did it. We took beach access B, which I describe in later on in the video, and made our way through these surge channels to Owen Point, which is one of the highlights of the West Coast Trail. Around Owen Point, we stopped here at the Quartertides, I guess the Quartertide starts somewhere around here, the Quartertide rocks. To go through the boulders, there's about 2 kilometers of large boulders before you make it to Thrasher Cove, which is the camp that we ended at for the day. It's 2 of the group. They decided to, once they saw and came down beach access B, to go back up and take the forest trail here. They described this section as being very similar to the section from day 5. So boggy, rough boardwalks and all of that stuff. So it was challenging in a different way, but also very similar to this section. This, you've got a steep incline to get down to the beach. You've got all the things that the beach brings with the surge channels. You get the beauty of Owen Point, a little bit of sand, and then you've got the 2 kilometers of these rocks, which are technical and kind of fun in a way, as long as, you know, steady does it, is my theory on this one. What they had to do was this kilometer descent of switchbacks and ladders down to the beach, which then they would have to do the next day for day 7 and our final day. By going the beach access, you only have to do this once. All in all, it was about an 8-kilometer hike, and you can see you are now through the sort of opening of the Port Juan Bay here. Pachina Bay is right here. This is Gordon River, and this is the trailhead. So from here, you can see Port Renfrew. You're gonna start to see civilization, and you're gonna see basically where you're gonna end the next day or where you started earlier that day. Yeah, well, let me paint a picture of our day of going from Camper Bay. We got up super early again, ahead of everybody else. We began early as usual from Camper Bay because we had to make sure we were at Owen Point and through the Quartertides before the tide was high. We decided to exit the forest at Beach Access B. In my SOBO hike, we exited the beach access at Beach Access A. That is considered the easier access, but I feel like by doing that, we avoided a pretty tricky surge channel. But Beach Access B is extremely challenging. It's quite a steep ladder to get down. And once you get down, you're on a very steep section of rock that can be quite slippery because this is a pretty wet portion of the trail just by nature of its environment. And it's a little unclear of how you come down from there. There's some fences that say don't enter, but eventually you make it down to the flatter beach shelf. I'm not entirely sure why the other 2 decided not to come with us. They were the younger and I would say stronger or strongest of the group. But the night before, there were a ton of people coming into camper with injuries and kind of terrifying or scary stories about their experience in the Quartertide rocks. We had a family come in and the girl had a beautifully sutured gash, like I guess some kind of cut on her face. And I'm not sure if she had a doctor in the family, but I hadn't seen such a beautiful Band-Aid repair on her face. She was happy and content, but she had done that in the Quartertide rocks. There were other people that came in with like bruises and sprains and other things from the rocks, and that I think kind of scared the other 2 from continuing onwards. They would not proceed along the beach shelf and opted to take the forest trail. For the 3 of us that did continue, I mean, this Owen Point again is one of the most beautiful points on this whole trail, and it's why many people do this trail in the first place. And we were going to persevere on. And I've got to say, I've done this section before. It is where both myself and my friend had some injuries, but it was the surge channels that freaked me the most actually on this section of the trail. One in particular was this bowl that kind of came out through the rock, and you had to go up and over the bowl, and there's this flimsy rope for false security that you can hold on to as you inch around the bowl, and the bowl sloping down to the surge channel. On the SOBO hike, southbound hike, I actually wasn't as scared. You do definitely have to be careful, but for some reason I wasn't as nervous, and I think it was less wet. I feel like it was really wet the last time I did it, and perhaps the water was even higher and I was less strong, but it definitely felt better this time. All right, we crossed what I recall is our third and hopefully final surge channel. While this day may be considered the second most beautiful section of the West Coast Trail, it is probably considered one of the most unique and challenging sections of this trail. This is because the beach access has some difficult surge channels that you have to maneuver around. There's the terrain of Owen Point, and then there are the 2 kilometers of the Quartertide rocks. These Quartertide rocks leave every hiker with some kind of story. Not all of the hikers that pass through the Quartertide rocks, either going SOBO or NOBO, end up with an injury. They will have a story to tell about the Quartertides. I'm happy to say that on this journey going SOBO, my group had only stories. But on my last hike, 4 years before, in 2019, 2 injuries occurred amongst the Quartertides. This is where I turtled. I didn't hurt myself from the turtling. It's a different kind of turtling than sailing turtling, but kind of similar. I think this is where it happened, that my toe got wedged in a rock when I turtled, and it pinched it, and I ended up with a very sore toe that was swelling by the end of the day, but I didn't really know what had happened, and that's the only place that I can think of this happening. I was ready to go on. I was ready to lose a toe if that's where what it came to. And in the end, I did have to have a hole drilled through the top of my toenail, and it took over a year for that whole toenail to heal. It was also here where my co-hiker got a bad injury, and this is where it ultimately led to us having to be rescued so that he could seek medical attention. I think I actually found this both times round a very meditative and methodical experience going through the Quartertides. And I'd be curious to hear if other people felt the same way. You just really had to watch every single step because you're clambering over rocks that are the size of large cars and trucks. And then there's a maze of driftwood on some of these as well that you have to maneuver around. It's like a game of pick up sticks. It's nice up there, right?
Nice view.
Yeah. At one point, as we were going through the rocks, I started to feel a sense of familiarity. But I didn't want to say anything to CNR because I didn't want to have false hope. And a couple minutes later, I was absolutely certain that we were near the end of the Quartertides, which meant we would be close to Thrasher Cove. And I ventured to say so much. C had some doubt, but I had no doubt. And sure enough, we turned a corner and there was Thrasher Cove. We were the first SOBO beach group through, D and N being the first SOBO duo to make it to camp. There were other people going northbound that were already there, but as we set up camp, more and more people came through. The tide was already coming up a little by the time we got into camp. We knew that window was closing quite quickly, and we knew there were other campers and other hikers that were going to do the beach access. Low tide that day happened at 10:51 a.m. So as we were going through the Quartertides, it was rising. I think we got through around 2ish, and high tide was at 5:14, according to my map here, at 3.5 meters. People were still coming through between 8 and 9 p.m. that day. Thrasher Cove was a pretty busy camp. It is a narrow site. There are posts that people put in to help mark off where the tide can come up to, but I'm sure you still have to, use common sense and look at your tide calendar that the national park provides. The water source was low at this point, but you could still get some from upstream. Because of the writing strike that occurred, this permitted some people, like actors, to take time off to do adventures like this. So we came across 2 actors at this site that were going NOBO. So after we set up camp, we just hung out. There was this big rock that you can kind of climb up and hang out on. The beach sand is really nice and soft. And this is where you are now able to see Port Renfrew. Here we are at Thrasher Cove. We're gonna go down to that beach tomorrow. It's 6 kilometers, and that's Gordon River. And across the way is Port Renfrew. We now start to see more and more small fishing boats or sailing boats. And as I was sitting on the beach, I recalled my first time there and how it was such a tough day. And I had come through on just after the largest rainstorm in 10 years. So it was even extra hard that time round. And I remember sitting on the beach and seeing this boat bobbing just offshore. Their boat was named Nap Time, and I thought it was taunting us. So as I'm sitting there thinking about that boat, I couldn't see the name of that boat because of the way it was positioned. A few hours later, the wind kind of turned it where it was anchored. And I just finished telling the story to my hiking friends, and sure enough, it was nap time again. That concludes our day going from Camper Bay to Thrasher Cove.